Welcome to Echoes of Africa, where hidden stories, bold voices, and untold truths rise from the heart of the continent. Before you dive in, hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because every echo here reveals the Africa they don't want you to see.
A different kind of confrontation is brewing up. It's about the country's vast reserves of uranium and who gets to control it. Niger's junta have announced that they are putting their uranium from the Somer mine on the open market. Somer, once majority controlled by French nuclear giant Orano, was nationalised by the junta in June, stripping Orano of any control. Orano says uranium has already been removed from the Somer site without its consent. It's calling the move illegal and a breach of an international ruling issued in September. The ruling barred Niger from selling or facilitating the transfer of any uranium produced by Somer. The company also warns of further action, including criminal proceedings.
Well, for more on this story, we're joined by our international affairs editor, Angela Diffley. Angela, France and the European Union, they're not delighted by this news, are they?
They're not delighted, no. As the president of Niger says, the general who is leading the junta there, this is our uranium. We will sell it to whom we want, as we wish, when we want. And that is the reality. It's true that this idea that some of it has already been seen. There are reports in international media that some uranium has already been taken to Togo, that it will from there go to Russia. These are reports in international media. In some ways, the Americans, the International Atomic Agency, would prefer Russia than Iran, which is one of the other possibilities. If it's going on the international market, France has no way, Europe has no way, nobody else has any way of stopping Niger selling that uranium to whomsoever it wants. What is also worrying is that in order to get from Niger to Togo in West Africa, or to the coast there, it has to cross several areas which are controlled by jihadists, and that in itself is a real security worry for the European Union, for France, that somehow jihadists might get their hands on that uranium as it travels. But the reality is that that is the position we're in. They have chosen to sell it to Russia. Increasingly, as we know, Russia has an important influence in Africa. It is helping many of these former French colonies in their fight against jihadists. Experts don't see their efforts being any more or less successful than the French efforts.
Across the African continent, a historic shift is unfolding as multiple nations take decisive steps to reclaim greater control over the natural resources that have shaped their economic trajectory for more than a century. Long-standing mining contracts, energy concessions, and financial arrangements, many of them tied to France, are being reconsidered, renegotiated, or replaced entirely. What is emerging is not only a political shift, but an economic awakening, with African governments asserting sovereignty over assets that were once managed largely by foreign powers. This movement has grown steadily over the past decade, but in recent years, it has accelerated with a momentum that has caught the attention of global powers. In resource-rich regions from West Africa to Central Africa and the Horn of Africa, governments are pushing for transparency, higher royalties, local participation, and in some cases, full nationalization. These changes are altering France's long-established economic footprint in Africa, triggering diplomatic debates, strategic recalculations, and international scrutiny. Niger, home to some of the world's most significant uranium reserves, became one of the most watched examples of this shift. For decades, uranium extracted from Niger has played an important role in France's nuclear energy industry. New leaders in Niger have suspended long-standing agreements, questioned the unequal distribution of mining profits, and sought to renegotiate terms to secure a greater share for the country's population. The uranium that once symbolized partnership is now at the center of a debate about sovereignty, value, and national rights. Mali has also taken major steps to regain control over its gold mining sector. Gold represents one of Mali's most important economic pillars, yet only a small percentage of the wealth historically stayed within the country. The Malian government introduced reforms aimed at increasing public ownership in mining ventures, and raising taxes on extraction. These measures were designed to strengthen national revenue and give Mali a more decisive voice in how its natural resources are used. Burkina Faso, another major gold producer, has applied similar policies. Leaders have emphasized that the country must benefit more fully from what lies beneath its soil. New regulations are pushing for more government involvement, demanding that companies invest in local infrastructure and provide clearer reporting of output and profits. This change has resonated deeply with communities that have long questioned why a land so rich in minerals remains economically constrained. In Central Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo continues to reshape its engagement with companies involved in its cobalt, copper, and lithium sectors, minerals critical for the global energy transition. Congo has revised its mining code, increasing royalties and rewriting terms to secure more value for the nation. These minerals supply global industries that rely heavily on batteries, electric vehicles, and renewable energy storage. As a result, the DRC's new assertiveness has drawn global attention, with France, China, the United States, and other nations closely monitoring developments. Guinea, home to the world's largest bauxite reserves, has tightened regulations around mining exports and required companies to process more minerals domestically. This policy seeks to shift the country from simply exporting raw materials to building an industrial base that creates jobs and boosts long-term economic growth. The new approach reduces dependency on foreign-owned refineries and aligns with Guinea's broader national vision of economic self-determination. Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire, emerging oil and gas players, have also begun re-evaluating how offshore energy projects are structured. Governments in both countries are pushing for contracts that ensure increased revenue sharing and domestic participation. These moves come at a time when global powers are investing heavily in securing African energy supplies, making renegotiations even more consequential. In Cameroon and Gabon, reforms have expanded national oversight over logging and mining operations, requiring greater transparency and periodic contract reviews. These policies reflect a continental trend. African governments are insisting that natural resources play a more transformative role in national development. France, which historically maintained deep economic ties through companies involved in mining, energy, and infrastructure, is facing growing challenges as African nations reshape their policies. Economic influence that was once taken for granted now requires new diplomatic approaches, fairer economic proposals, and recognition of Africa's evolving power. Multiple African leaders have emphasized that the new direction is not anti-French, but rather pro-sovereignty. The goal is to ensure that national resources directly benefit local populations instead of flowing predominantly to foreign entities. This message has been repeated across Africa's political landscape. From West African gold belts to Central African mining corridors, the continent wants partnerships, not dependency. France has responded by re-examining its strategies, encouraging new investment models, and engaging in conversations around equitable development. French companies with long histories in Africa now face more competition from nations such as China, India, Turkey, and the United States. The result is a more diverse economic environment in which African governments have increased leverage to choose partners who align with their priorities. The shift extends beyond mineral extraction. Countries across Africa are strengthening financial regulations, revising agreements signed decades ago, and establishing sovereign wealth funds to stabilize income from oil, gas, and minerals. This approach mirrors strategies used by other resource-rich nations around the world and signals a new level of long-term economic planning within the continent. In some nations, citizens have played a powerful role in demanding change. Public pressure for transparency and national benefit has encouraged leaders to renegotiate contracts and pursue reforms. Social movements, economic studies, and government audits have all contributed to the momentum. As people across Africa push for fairness and accountability, governments face greater responsibility to protect the nation's assets. International observers note that the global demand for critical minerals will continue to rise, particularly minerals essential to renewable energy technologies. Batteries, solar panels, and electric vehicles rely heavily on resources found in Africa. This positions the continent as a key player in the future energy landscape, boosting its negotiating power on the world stage. France is adapting to this new reality. Diplomats, policymakers, and business leaders are engaging in dialogue to maintain relationships while recognizing Africa's evolving priorities. As African nations take command of their natural assets, the dynamic between France and its African partners is transforming into something new, less about historical patterns and more about modern competition and cooperation. This evolving landscape is not a sudden rupture, but the result of decades of gradual change. The rise of new African institutions, improved governance, regional alliances, and economic diversification have all contributed to the moment. What is happening now is a clearer, more confident expression of sovereignty, reflecting Africa's growing influence in the global arena. As the world watches, African nations are charting a path defined by ownership, fairness, and long-term national interest. The decisions being made today will shape economies for generations. The continent's natural resources, gold, uranium, bauxite, copper, cobalt, lithium, oil, gas, and more, are being repositioned as engines of growth rather than symbols of imbalance. France remains an important international partner for many African countries, but the terms of engagement are changing. Respect for sovereignty, equitable economic cooperation, and mutual benefit will define the future. The emerging economic landscape suggests that Africa is entering a new era, one in which its natural assets play a central role in strengthening national stability, driving industrialization, and empowering future generations. The shift underway is more than a policy adjustment. It is a continental reaffirmation of economic independence. Africa is asserting itself as a global actor with the authority to shape its own destiny. And as it does, the world, including France, is rethinking the roles, expectations, and economic structures that have long defined international relationships. You've been watching Echoes of Africa, where every story carries the sound of tomorrow. If this moved you, subscribe now, like, and share so Africa's voice never fades into silence.